Everything changed literally in a matter of seconds. I want you to picture it. The neon green and blue confetti is falling. It's sticking to the sweat-drenched jerseys of men who just etched their names in eternity. The Lombardi Trophy is hoisted up under those blinding stadium lights. The deafening roar of the crowd is just ringing in your ears. You are the kings of the football world. But look, in the modern NFL, the euphoria of a championship is incredibly painfully fleeting. The very moment the Seattle Seahawks secured their Super Bowl LX victory, the second that final knee was taken, the clock started ticking. The roster that bled for that ring, the exact guys who willed that victory into existence, they began to fracture. Because the salary cap is a ruthless, unfeeling predator, and it came for Seattle's biggest, most expensive stars immediately. So welcome to our latest explainer. Today we're looking at a team that reached the absolute mountaintop only to find that the air up there is suffocating. The foundation of their championship is completely gone, and what remains in its wake? Well, it's a high-stakes, underdog crucible. So I really want you to let this question hang in the air for a second. How do you replace a Super Bowl MVP? Seriously, think about it. You don't just draft a clone. You don't just sign a warm body off the street and hope for the best. The pure joy of Seattle's championship was instantly and violently met with a devastating reality check in the very first hours of free agency. Kenneth Walker III, the undisputed engine of this offense, the man who carried the entire load on the game's absolute biggest stage, is gone. And listen, this wasn't just your average running back. This was the ultimate safety valve. This was a player who could routinely take a totally broken play, a certain 2-yard loss behind the line of scrimmage, and somehow turn it into a breathtaking 40-yard gain on pure, unadulterated instinct. I mean, he was out there breaking tackles on third down in the fourth quarter when literally everyone else on the field was completely gassed. And now, he's packed his bags for Kansas City. The literal heartbeat of their ground game just vanished into thin air. Look at this quote from the reports covering the immediate aftermath. The Seahawks may have won the Super Bowl, but the team suffered a big loss when Kenneth Walker III left in free agency. Honestly, that word loss barely even covers it. It's a massive, gaping void right in the dead center of their offensive identity. Okay, let's dive into this dangerous new reality. Because the story of how they actually plan to fill this massive void, it isn't about splashy, headline-grabbing free agent signings. It isn't about mortgaging the future for blockbuster trades. It's about sheer, raw desperation. It's about an incredibly uncomfortable level of trust, and it's about leaning heavily, maybe too heavily, into the terrifying unknown. Now, to track this developing, incredibly high-stakes dynasty survival story, you absolutely need to be locked in with us here at NFL Nexus. Subscribe to the channel right now. Go ahead and like this explainer and comment your thoughts below. I really want to know, do you truly believe this dynasty can survive this brutal offseason? And hey, if you want the deepest, most analytical dives into the hyper-granular details of the league, the raw film room breakdowns, the salary cap spreadsheets, the stuff the mainstream networks just completely ignore, support us by becoming a channel member, because this is the absolute only place you're going to get the full, unfiltered picture of the chaos happening behind closed doors in Seattle right now. Just look at this stark, almost unbelievable contrast. On one side, we have the void. You've got Kenneth Walker III, an established offensive titan, and Rick Woolen, a towering, high-profile superstar in the secondary. We're talking elite, established, highly expensive. Now, on the other side, you have the replacements, George Holani and Josh Jobe. Gritty, unproven, undrafted guys stepping directly from the shadows right into the blinding spotlight of a title defense. Let's be clear, this is not your normal roster transition. It's like a high-wire act without a net. And if this act fails, the consequences are absolutely cataclysmic. General managers get fired over this, coaching regimes are completely cleared out, and a championship window doesn't just gently close. It slams shut, and it stays locked for a decade. The stakes literally could not be higher. Chapter 1. The Unlikely Offensive Savior. All right, let's shift our focus to the highly granular details of this offensive backfield. When a Super Bowl MVP walks out the front door, you'd naturally expect a first-round pick to immediately take the reins, right? Or you'd expect some high-priced veteran to step in and steady the ship. But the reality unfolding in Seattle right now is far more shocking. The man tasked with carrying the immense weight of this franchise's rushing attack is essentially a ghost to the casual football fan. 41. I really want you to let that number sink in for a second. 41. That is the shockingly low number of total career offensive snaps George Holani has taken in his entire first 2 years in the National Football League. We are talking about the primary replacement for a reigning Super Bowl MVP here. He was acquired as an undrafted rookie back in 2024. In his first year, he rushed for just 10 yards on 3 carries. 10 yards. That's a rounding error in a standard NFL game. It's the equivalent of a cup of coffee in the big leagues. He is virtually entirely untested in the brutal crucible of professional football. And the disparity here is just staggering. 5 offensive snaps in 2024, 36 snaps in 2025. To put that into proper perspective for you, a standard bell cow starting running back in the NFL will routinely see upwards of 800, sometimes 900 snaps in a single season. George Holani saw 36. In the playoffs, during that grueling magical run to the Lombardi Trophy, he barely even saw the field at all. He received exactly 5 carries for 10 yards in the entire postseason. That is it. Yet, despite being almost completely invisible when the stadium lights were at their absolute brightest, he is the solitary figure now tasked with carrying the entire load for a defending champion. But then the early reports from minicamp hit the wire, and they completely shake the foundation of everything we assumed about this roster. Get a load of this quote. In the 6 full squad practices, it was Holani, not first-round pick Jadarian Price, or free agent pickup Emmanuel Wilson, who tended to get the first crack with the #1 offense. Guys, this is stunning. The front office spent the 32nd overall pick on Jadarian Price. Do you know what the 32nd overall pick usually gets you in this league? It gets you a massive, fully guaranteed contract. It gets you the ultimate benefit of the doubt. It gets you infinite patience from the coaching staff to make mistakes and learn. They also signed a seasoned veteran in Emmanuel Wilson. Yet, Holani is out-repping both of them. He is out there matching a first-round pick's freak athleticism and intensity in every single drill, every single day. The undrafted third stringer is dominating the highly touted marquee additions. No way anyone saw this come in. So the absolutely crucial point to grasp here is understanding the sheer, undeniable brutality of the circumstances that actively forged this opportunity. The backfield blueprint is paved with brutal medical adversity. Yes, Walker is gone to Kansas City, but heavily compounding that nightmare is the reality of Zach Charbonnet. He is currently recovering from a devastating, gruesome ACL tear suffered deep in the postseason. The medical tent is completely full, the depth chart has been absolutely decimated, and rising from those ashes is George Holani. He is now legitimately expected to command 30 to 35% of the total offensive snaps. He could see up to 300 live snaps this season, a man who, remember, has exactly 41 to his name. Think about the sheer physical toll of 300 NFL snaps. Each snap is essentially a minor car collision. It's 300 repetitions of 250-pound, incredibly angry linebackers actively hunting you in the A-gap. The stakes for his body, and for this entire offense, are astronomical.
Chapter 2. Forging the Dark Side.
But the offense? That's only half the story. Let's pivot sharply to the other side of the ball. The Seattle secondary isn't just a position group, it's an identity. It's a ruthless, unapologetically violent mentality that dictates the tone of the entire franchise. And the man stepping in to directly uphold that legacy, well, he isn't who you'd expect. Look at Josh Job's deeply cinematic rise from the ashes. This isn't your clean, cookie-cutter story of immediate pampered superstardom. It is a grueling, soul-crushing grind. Back in 2020, he was a full-time starter at Alabama, racking up 93 total tackles and 15 pass breakups. He was a four-star recruit who actually chose Bama over his hometown Miami Hurricanes. But the NFL, they simply did not care about his pedigree. He went totally undrafted. In 2024, the Philadelphia Eagles cut him in the preseason. I want you to imagine the psychological toll of that exact day. It's August in Philadelphia. You're handing over your team iPad and your playbook, walking out to your car knowing your lifelong dream is currently on life support. The agonizing, deafening silence of waiting for the phone to ring. He spent nearly 3 months developing in the absolute shadows on the Seahawks practice squad. And by 2025, against all odds, he started 6 critical games for a Super Bowl champion.
The raw numbers here completely tell the story of a man violently fighting for his professional life out there on the gridiron. 54 total tackles, 41 solo tackles, 12 pass breakups. He played in 16 games last year. Now listen, he isn't the biggest corner on the field by any stretch. And he might not be the absolute most technically efficient in a pure, smooth zone coverage drop, but we really need to define the difference between a coverage corner and a tackling corner, right? Coverage corners, they rely on fluid hips, smooth backpedaling, and running stride for stride with the receiver. Josh Jobe, he is a tackling corner. He triggers downhill like a heat-seeking missile. He genuinely wants to separate the football from the receiver through sheer kinetic energy. He is an incredibly efficient tackler who visibly craves aggression. His highly physical playstyle directly mirrors the punishing, rib-cracking identity the defensive coaching staff desperately demands. He doesn't just want to make the stop, he wants to deliver the devastating hit.
And absolutely nothing cemented his legacy with the local fan base quite like this exact highly specific moment. Super Bowl LX. Literally the grandest, most heavily scrutinized stage in American sports. The stadium lights are blinding. The global pressure is intensely crushing. And what exactly does Josh Jobe do? He actively bullies New England Patriots wide receiver Stephon Diggs after the whistle. He didn't just play coverage. He grabbed the face mask, he drove his hands into the chest plate, he drove him right into the turf. He imposed absolute physical dominance. He looked an established, multi-million-dollar star dead in the eye on the biggest stage and let him know, with zero disrespect spared, that the dark side defense was here and there was no way it was backing down an inch. Which ultimately leads us to a front office decision that completely shocked the rest of the league. He has the mentality that fits with the dark side defense. It's a big reason why head coach Mike Macdonald preferred Chobe over Woolen moving forward. Think about what that actually means for a second. They actively preferred the undrafted practice squad castoff over the towering, highly recognizable star. The team willingly, intentionally let Rick Woolen walk away in free agency. They let him go because Chobe's highly specific psychological makeup, his relentless internal fire, and his raw ability to mirror a receiver's physical movement, it's the absolute perfect cultural fit for where this defense is heading.
Chapter 3. The Financial Masterstroke.
But if you think this is purely an emotional, culture-driven decision, you deeply misunderstand the cold, hard business of professional football. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is it shows exactly why these roster moves aren't strictly about grit, heart, and culture. They are fundamentally about survival. The NFL's salary cap is a cold, unfeeling, brutal math equation, and keeping a championship window cracked open requires absolutely ruthless calculus. The sheer financial chasm between the past and the future is massive. Look at Kenneth Walker III. He left for the Kansas City Chiefs on a massive 3-year, $43.05 million deal. That is cornerstone, franchise-altering money. Now look at George Holani, promoted directly to the first team. His contract, an exclusive rights free agent deal worth barely over $1 million. For those who don't know the exact mechanisms of the CBA, an ERFA deal means the player has exactly zero leverage. He literally cannot negotiate with anyone else. It's the absolute bare minimum. You take it or you do not play football this year. That is a $42 million difference. That is the harsh, unforgiving cost of doing business in the modern NFL.
But when the front office inevitably finds a cheek piece that fits the puzzle perfectly, they aggressively strike. $24 million. That is the 3-year extension the Seahawks confidently handed to Josh Jobe. The former practice squad corner, the guy packing his bags after being cut by the Eagles, is now financially locked in as a foundational core piece of a Super Bowl defense. So why pay him now? Because it's a highly calculated gamble. If Jobe goes out there and proves he is an elite talent this year, if he genuinely mirrors the Pro Bowl trajectory of a guy like Devin Witherspoon, his price tag on the open market next year would easily jump to $80 or $90 million. By locking him up right now, they are heavily buying into his prime at a massive, massive long-term discount.
It all fundamentally comes down to this cold, hard, inescapable reality. Major savings in both cash and cap for a team trying to sustain a championship-caliber roster. You simply cannot pay everyone. The math literally prohibits it. If Holani produces at even a solid average level, it makes the front office look like absolute, undisputed geniuses. Replacing expensive, aging superstars with incredibly cheap, starving, highly motivated, undrafted talent, it isn't just a clever strategy, it is literally the only way to keep an NFL dynasty breathing for more than a single season.
Chapter 4. Unfinished Business in Seattle.
And that squarely brings us to the precipice of the terrifying unknown. Sure, the local praise is flowing, the financial cap spreadsheets look absolutely brilliant on paper, the beat writers are openly amazed at minicamp. But minicamp, OTAs. Listen, these are just fully scripted rehearsals. It is fundamentally football in shorts and t-shirts. Because the dark looming truth is, the heavy pads haven't even come on yet. All the off-season hype, all the brilliant financial cap genius, all the outward confidence in a backfield aggressively led by a man with exactly 41 career snaps. It means absolutely nothing until the actual bone-jarring hits start. There is a massive, tangible physical difference between running crisp routes in May and playing a live NFL game in November. November is rock-hard, frozen turf. It is the deafening sound of cracking plastic on every single down. It's your breath visible in the freezing air and pure, unfiltered desperation down in the trenches. It means absolutely nothing until a 300-pound defensive tackle with incredibly bad intentions and a family to feed is staring you down on a freezing Sunday afternoon.
Which leaves us here, staring directly at the most dangerous, consequential question in the National Football League today. Can you truly sustain a modern NFL dynasty on the untested backs of a Philadelphia practice squad castoff and a ghost of a running back with just 41 career snaps? The Seattle Seahawks are actively pushing every single one of their chips right into the absolute center of the table, betting their entire fragile championship window on the raw grit of the completely unknown. It is a massive, highly unprecedented, and incredibly dangerous risk, and we are going to be watching every single agonizing, beautiful second of it unfold. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Be sure to subscribe, and I will see you next time as we fiercely continue to track this dangerous new reality.